Sarah Mitchell counted out exact change for the elderly woman's groceries, sliding $17.43 across the counter. Her own money. Again. It was the third time this week she'd paid for someone who came up short at the register, and her rent was due in 2 days. The man behind them in line watched silently, his worn jacket and scuffed shoes suggesting he was barely scraping by himself. What Sarah didn't know was that the man in the cheap clothes was Marcus Henley, founder of Henley Enterprises, worth $3.2 billion. He was conducting an undercover investigation of his own grocery store chain, and what he just witnessed was about to change Sarah's life in ways she couldn't imagine. But first, it would destroy everything she thought she knew about her job, her boss, and the store she'd worked at for 6 years. If you want to see what happens when a billionaire disguises himself as a regular person and discovers who really deserves to be rewarded, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. This story will restore your faith in humanity and prove that sometimes the people with the most money aren't the ones wearing expensive suits. Sarah Mitchell was 26 years old and had worked at Henley Fresh Market in Columbus, Ohio for 6 years. She started as a bagger at 20, worked her way up to cashier, and had been trying to get promoted to assistant manager for the past 2 years. But somehow that promotion never came. Her manager, Dennis Crawford, always had an excuse. Not enough experience. Not the right time. Budget constraints. Meanwhile, he'd promoted 3 other people, all of them men, all of them with less seniority than Sarah. She made $11 an hour. She lived in a studio apartment with a broken heater and a landlord who didn't fix things. She ate ramen most nights and shopped the clearance section at the grocery store where she worked, using her employee discount to stretch every dollar. She was tired all the time. Tired of working. Tired of being broke. Tired of watching other people get ahead while she stayed stuck. But she tried to be kind anyway, even when it cost her, like today. The elderly woman, Mrs. Patterson, came through Sarah's line every Wednesday with the same items: bread, milk, eggs, cat food, a small piece of meat for dinner. Her hands shook as she counted out crumpled bills and loose change from a worn purse. Today she was $17 short. "I'm so sorry," Mrs. Patterson said, her voice trembling. "I thought I had enough. I must have miscounted. I can put some things back." She reached for the cat food first. Always the cat food. Sarah had seen her do this before. "It's okay," Sarah said quietly, pulling bills from her own wallet. "I've got it." "Oh, honey, no, I can't let you do that." "Please, it's fine. I want to help." Mrs. Patterson's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Bless you. I'll pay you back." "Don't worry about it," Sarah said, bagging the groceries. She knew Mrs. Patterson wouldn't pay her back. The woman lived on Social Security and could barely afford food. Sarah knew because Mrs. Patterson had told her once, apologizing for taking so long to count her change. The man in line behind Mrs. Patterson had watched the entire exchange. Sarah glanced at him as she rang up his items: bread, peanut butter, generic cereal, instant coffee. The basics. His clothes were worn, his jacket had a tear in the sleeve, his shoes were scuffed. He looked like he was struggling too. "That was kind of you," he said as Sarah scanned his groceries. "She needed help," Sarah said simply. "Do you do that often?" Sarah hesitated. "Sometimes, when people are short and I can afford it." "Can you afford it?" It was a personal question from a stranger, but something about his eyes made Sarah answer honestly. "Not really, but they need it more than I do." The man nodded slowly, paying for his groceries with cash. "What's your name?" Sarah Mitchell." "How long have you worked here, Sarah?" 6 years. "You like it?" Sarah almost laughed. "It's a job. It pays the bills." "Mostly." "What would you do if you could do anything else?" Another personal question, but Sarah found herself answering. "I'd go back to school, get a business degree, maybe manage a store someday, or open my own." Why don't you? Because school costs money I don't have. And managers here don't promote people like me. People like you. Women. People who actually care about customers instead of just hitting sales targets. The man looked at her thoughtfully. Thank you for your help today, Sarah. He walked out with his groceries and Sarah forgot about him immediately. She had 4 more hours in her shift, a line of impatient customers, and a boss who was probably going to yell at her for something before the day ended. Dennis Crawford was 48, overweight, and had made it clear from day one that he didn't think women belonged in management. He never said it explicitly, but Sarah heard it in every comment about how female employees were too emotional, or not assertive enough, or didn't have what it takes. He'd promoted Kyle, who'd been there 3 years, over Sarah last month. Kyle spent most of his shifts on his phone. At 5 o'clock, Dennis called Sarah into his office. She knew this routine. He'd watched the security cameras and seen her pay for Mrs. Patterson's groceries. You gave money to a customer today, Dennis said. He was sitting behind his desk, eating a sandwich that smelled expensive. She was $17 short. I helped her. That's against policy. Employees aren't supposed to give money to customers. There's no policy against it. I checked. Well, there should be. You're encouraging people to come in here without enough money, expecting handouts. Mrs. Patterson is 83 years old and lives on Social Security. She's not scamming anyone. That's not the point. The point is you're setting a bad example. What if all my cashiers started giving money to customers? We'd go broke. Sarah bit back the response she wanted to give. That Dennis made $60,000 a year while his cashiers made poverty wages. That he took 2-hour lunches and left early on Fridays. That he'd been reported for harassment 3 times and nothing ever happened because his brother-in-law was the district manager. Is there anything else? Sarah asked. Yeah, I'm writing you up. 3 write-ups and you're fired. This is number 2. What was number 1? You were late last month. I was 5 minutes late because my bus broke down. Late is late. Now get back to work. Sarah left his office feeling the familiar burn of injustice. She'd been written up for being kind, for helping someone who needed it. Meanwhile, Kyle had called in sick 4 times last month to go fishing, and Dennis thought it was hilarious. She finished her shift and took the bus home, counting the money in her wallet. $43 until payday in 5 days. Rent was due in 2 days. She was $87 short. She'd have to ask her landlord for an extension again. He'd say yes, but he'd make her feel like garbage first. When Sarah got home, there was a notice on her door. The building was being sold. All tenants had 30 days to vacate. Sarah sat down on her front step and wanted to cry, but she was too tired for tears. The next morning, Sarah was back at work at 7 a.m. The man in the worn jacket came through her line again. Same items: bread, peanut butter, cereal, coffee. You're here early, Sarah said. I like to get my shopping done before the crowds, he said. Then casually, how's your boss? Sarah glanced around to make sure Dennis wasn't nearby. Why do you ask? Just curious. You mentioned yesterday that managers here don't promote people like you. I was wondering what that's like. Sarah didn't know why she was talking to this stranger, but something about him felt safe. I've been trying to get promoted to assistant manager for 2 years. My boss keeps passing me over for men with less experience. Yesterday, he wrote me up for helping that elderly woman. He wrote you up for being kind? He said I was violating policy. There is no policy, but he wrote me up anyway. The man's expression darkened. What's your boss's name? Dennis Crawford. Why? Just curious. He paid for his groceries and left. That afternoon, something unusual happened. A group of people in business suits came into the store. They weren't shopping. They went straight to Dennis's office. Sarah watched through the office window as Dennis's face went from confused to pale to terrified. An hour later, Dennis was escorted out of the building by security, just walked out carrying a box of his belongings, not looking at anyone. The woman in the business suit, tall and black, with natural hair and sharp eyes, walked up to Sarah's register. Sarah Mitchell? Yes? I'm Angela Reeves, Director of Human Resources for Henley Enterprises. Can you come with me, please? Sarah's stomach dropped. She was getting fired. This was it. Dennis had complained about her helping customers, and now she was done. Angela led her to the break room, where two other people in suits were waiting. A white man in his 50s with glasses and a serious expression, and the man from yesterday, the one in the worn jacket. Except today he was wearing a suit that probably cost more than Sarah's car. His shoes were polished. His watch was expensive. He looked completely different. Sarah, Angela said, this is Marcus Henley. He owns this company. And this is James Foster, our legal counsel. Sarah stared at the man from yesterday, the one with the cheap jacket and scuffed shoes. You're Marcus Henley? I am, he said. I'm sorry for the deception. I go undercover sometimes in my stores. I like to see how they're really run when people don't know I'm watching. You were testing me? Not you specifically. I was investigating this store because we've had complaints about management. But then I saw what you did for Mrs. Patterson, and I heard what you said about wanting to go back to school. And then you told me about your boss, so I did some digging. Angela pulled out a folder. We've been investigating Dennis Crawford for 3 months. Multiple harassment complaints, discriminatory promotion practices, misuse of company funds. He's been stealing from the store for 2 years. Small amounts at first, then larger. He's taken approximately $47,000. Sarah couldn't process this. He was stealing? From inventory, from the safe, from vendor kickbacks. He covered it well, but not well enough. We've terminated him and referred the case to the police. He'll be prosecuted. Marcus leaned forward. But that's not why you're here. You're here because in the 6 years you've worked for this company, you've never called in sick. You've never been late except for that one time with the bus. You have the highest customer satisfaction ratings of any cashier in this district. You've caught register shortages that prevented theft. You've de-escalated conflicts. You've helped customers in ways that go beyond your job description. And yesterday you gave your own money to help someone, even though you can barely afford your rent. Sarah's face burned. How do you know about my rent? Because I asked. After I saw what you did, I wanted to know more about you. I had HR pull your file. I learned that you've applied for the assistant manager position 6 times and been rejected each time. I learned that you make $11 an hour after 6 years of employment. I learned that Dennis has written you up twice for things that aren't violations. And I got angry. Why? Because you're exactly the kind of employee this company should be promoting. And instead, we've been wasting you at a register while promoting men who don't give a damn. Marcus pulled out a paper. This is a job offer. Assistant store manager position. Starting salary $48,000 per year. Full benefits. Tuition reimbursement for college courses. The position is yours if you want it. Sarah stared at the paper. $48,000. That was more than 4 times what she made now. That was enough to get a decent apartment, to go back to school, to stop eating ramen for every meal. Is this a joke? She whispered. It's not a joke, Angela said gently. You've earned this, Sarah, multiple times over. But I don't have management experience. You've been doing the job of a manager for years without the title or pay, Marcus said. You train new employees. You handle difficult customers. You solve problems. You just haven't been recognized for it. That changes now. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Marcus said, and then let me tell you the rest. There's more. There's more. Marcus smiled. Yesterday, I watched you give $17 to a woman who needed it. Money you couldn't afford to give. You did it anyway. That told me something about your character. So I want to make you an offer. The tuition reimbursement in your benefits package will cover up to $20,000 per year in college costs, but I'm going to personally cover the full cost of your bachelor's degree. All of it. Tuition, books, fees, whatever you need. Sarah couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. And one more thing, Marcus continued. That building you live in that's being sold? I bought it. The new owner is going to renovate and improve it, but all current tenants are being offered new leases at your current rent rate, locked in for 5 years. You don't have to move if you don't want to. Why? Sarah finally managed to ask. Why are you doing this? Marcus's expression softened. 20 years ago, I was broke. I was working 3 jobs, trying to support my sick mother, and I couldn't make ends meet. I went to a grocery store to buy food, and I was $12 short. The cashier paid for my groceries out of her own pocket. She didn't know me. She just saw someone who needed help. That cashier's kindness stayed with me. When I started my business and it became successful, I never forgot her. I tried to find her to pay her back, but I never could. So I decided that if I ever saw someone else do what she did, someone who gave when they had nothing to give, I'd make sure they were taken care of. Yesterday, I found that person. You're her, Sarah, and I'm not going to let you struggle anymore. Sarah Mitchell started her new position as assistant store manager the following Monday. The pay increase meant she could finally breathe. For the first time in 6 years, she wasn't counting pennies or choosing between electricity and groceries. She paid her rent 2 months in advance. She bought real food. She signed up for evening classes at the community college, business administration major, with Marcus Henley's scholarship covering every cent. But the biggest change was at work. The staff who'd worked alongside her for years were thrilled. Rosa, who'd been a cashier for 8 years, hugged her and cried, "You deserve this, mija. You always deserve this." Kyle, the guy Dennis had promoted over Sarah, quit within a week. He couldn't handle having Sarah as his boss. Couldn't handle that the woman he'd mocked was now making more than him. Sarah didn't miss him. The first thing Sarah did as assistant manager was review store policies. She found dozens of problems Dennis had ignored or actively made worse. The scheduling system gave senior employees the worst shifts. The break room was falling apart. The employee bathroom had been broken for 3 months. Supply orders were inconsistent, causing shortages that stressed the staff. Sarah fixed it all. She reorganized schedules fairly. She got the bathroom fixed. She streamlined supply orders. She implemented a new training program for cashiers. And she made sure that employees who went above and beyond were recognized. The second thing Sarah did was create a small emergency fund for customers. She approached Marcus with the idea during his visit to check on the store's progress. "I want to help customers who come up short," Sarah explained. "Not as my personal money, but as a store policy. A fund that employees can access to help people in genuine need, with limits and oversight to prevent abuse, but something official." Marcus studied her. Most managers would focus on maximizing profit. Profit doesn't mean anything if we're not helping our community. Mrs. Patterson shouldn't have to choose between cat food and dignity, and employees shouldn't have to use their own money to be kind. "How much do you need?" "I was thinking $500 a month to start. If it works, we can adjust." Marcus pulled out his phone and made a note. "You'll have $1,000 a month, and if this works here, we'll roll it out to every Henley Fresh Market in the country. That's 347 stores. You might just change company policy nationwide." Within 3 months, Sarah's store had the highest customer satisfaction ratings in the district. Employee turnover dropped to almost zero. Sales increased 18%. Word spread about the store where employees actually cared, where the manager knew your name, where you'd be treated like a human being instead of a transaction. Marcus visited regularly, sometimes in disguise, sometimes as himself. He watched Sarah work and saw something he rarely found in managers: genuine care combined with business competence. She was good with numbers, good with people, good at solving problems. She was exactly what his company needed. 6 months after her promotion, Marcus called Sarah into a meeting. Angela Reeves was there too, along with James Foster and two other executives Sarah had never met. "Sarah," Marcus began, "I want to talk to you about your future with this company." Sarah's stomach tightened. Was this bad? Had she done something wrong? "You've exceeded every expectation," Marcus continued. "Your store is performing better than it has in 10 years. Your staff loves working for you. Customers love shopping here. You've implemented policies that we're now using across the entire chain. The emergency fund program, it's been so successful that we've launched it in all 347 stores." "You did that." "I just tried to help people," Sarah said. "That's exactly why you're good at this." Marcus slid a paper across the table. "This is an offer for district manager. You'd oversee 15 stores in the Columbus area. Salary 85,000, full benefits, company car, bonus structure that could add another 20,000 annually. You'd be the youngest district manager in company history." Sarah stared at the number. $85,000. A year ago, she'd been making $11 an hour. "That's not all," Marcus said. "We're expanding. I'm planning to open a new division focused on community-oriented grocery stores in underserved areas. Food deserts where people don't have access to fresh, affordable food. I want stores that prioritize community over maximum profit. Stores that hire locally, source from local farms, give back to their neighborhoods. I need someone to run that division. I think that person is you." "I've only been a manager for 6 months," Sarah said. "I'm still in school. I don't have the experience." "You have exactly the right experience," Angela interrupted. "You know what it's like to struggle. You know what communities need because you've lived it. You care about people, not just profit. That's what this division requires." "The district manager position is yours now," Marcus said, "but I'm offering you something bigger for the future. Finish your degree, learn the business. In 2 years, I want you to launch this new division as Vice President of Community Markets. Salary starts at $250,000. You'd have full authority to build the division however you think best." Sarah couldn't speak. Vice President, $250,000. 2 years ago, she'd been scrubbing toilets to clean up after customers. Last year, she'd been eating ramen and counting change. Now she was being offered an executive position. "Why me?" she finally whispered. "Because I watched you give $17 to a stranger when you had $43 to your name. Because you care more about doing what's right than what's easy. Because you're smart and capable, and you see people as people, not numbers on a spreadsheet. Because 20 years ago, someone helped me when I had nothing, and now I see that same spirit in you. And because this company, this industry, needs more people like you making decisions." Sarah took the district manager position. She spent the next 18 months learning everything she could. She visited every store in her district, met every employee, learned every system. She finished her bachelor's degree in business administration, graduating summa cum laude. Marcus attended her graduation, sitting in the audience and cheering when she walked across the stage. She also stayed in touch with Mrs. Patterson. The elderly woman cried when Sarah told her about the promotion. "I knew you were special, dear. The first time you helped me, I knew." During those 18 months, Sarah transformed her district. Employee satisfaction was the highest in the company. Customer ratings were exceptional. Sales were strong. She implemented programs that other districts started copying. She mentored assistant managers, helping them grow into their roles. 3 people she trained got promoted to store manager, and she learned something important. Kindness and business success weren't opposites. They reinforced each other. When you treated people well, they worked harder. When customers felt valued, they came back. When employees felt respected, they stayed. The stores that did best weren't the ones squeezing every penny out of everyone. They were the ones that invested in their people. 22 months after accepting the district manager position, Sarah was ready. Marcus knew it. Angela knew it. Sarah knew it. The announcement went out on a Monday morning. Sarah Mitchell, formerly a cashier, making $11 an hour, was now vice president of community markets for Henley Enterprises. She'd oversee the development of a new division focused on bringing quality grocery stores to underserved communities. Starting salary, $250,000, plus bonuses and stock options. The press loved the story. From cashier to executive, the Cinderella story of Sarah Mitchell. Billionaire rewards kindness with dream job. Grocery store cashier becomes vice president after helping stranger. But Sarah didn't care about the press. She cared about the work. Over the next 3 years, she opened 42 stores in communities that had been labeled food deserts, places where the nearest grocery store was 10 miles away, and people relied on gas stations for food, places where fresh vegetables were a luxury, places everyone else had written off as unprofitable. Sarah proved them wrong. Her stores were profitable because they served real needs. They hired locally, often giving jobs to people who'd been overlooked by other businesses. They sourced from nearby farms. They kept prices affordable while maintaining quality. They offered nutrition classes, cooking demonstrations, and community meeting spaces. And every single store had an emergency assistance fund. If someone came up short, they got help. No judgment, no shame, just help. Sarah's division became the most talked about part of Henley Enterprises. Business schools taught case studies about her model. Other companies tried to copy it. She spoke at conferences, wrote articles, appeared on news programs. But her favorite part of the job was still the same as when she'd been a cashier, helping people. She still visited stores regularly, sometimes announced, sometimes not. She'd work shifts at registers, stock shelves, bag groceries. She wanted to stay connected to the work, to remember what it felt like to be the person at the bottom of the ladder looking up. One day, 5 years after that morning when Marcus had revealed himself, Sarah was working a register at a new store in Detroit. A young woman came through her line, clearly stressed. She had a baby on her hip and a toddler holding her leg. Her groceries totaled $63. She counted out her money twice and came up $19 short. "I'm so sorry," the woman said, her voice shaking. "I thought I had enough. I can put some things back." Sarah saw herself in that young mother, saw the exhaustion, the embarrassment, the desperate calculation of what she could afford to lose. "You don't need to put anything back," Sarah said. She pulled out a store card from the emergency fund. "We have a program to help when people come up short. This covers it." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. You need this food. Your kids need this food. That's what matters." "I don't know what to say." "Just take care of your babies. That's enough." As Sarah bagged the groceries, the woman looked at her name tag. "Thank you, Sarah. I won't forget this." "I hope you do forget it," Sarah said gently. "I hope someday you're in a place where this is just a distant memory of a hard time that passed." After the woman left, the next customer in line stepped forward. He was older, well-dressed with kind eyes. "That was beautiful," he said. "It's just groceries," Sarah said. "It's more than that. It's dignity. It's compassion. It's the kind of thing that restores faith in humanity." Sarah smiled as she rang up his items. She heard that kind of thing a lot now, but it never got old. Because she remembered what it felt like to be on the other side of that counter, to be the one who was short, to be the one who needed help. And she remembered the man in the worn jacket who'd seen her kindness and decided to reward it, who'd changed her entire life because she'd given $17 to a stranger. That night, Sarah went home to her nice apartment in a safe neighborhood. She made dinner in a kitchen with appliances that worked. She sat at a desk where she did homework for her MBA, which Marcus's company was paying for. And she thought about how different her life was now. She thought about Dennis Crawford, who'd been convicted of embezzlement and spent 2 years in prison, who'd lost everything because he was too busy stealing and discriminating to see the value in his employees. She thought about Kyle, who'd bounced between jobs and was now working at a warehouse making less than Sarah had made as a cashier. She thought about Mrs. Patterson, who was still alive at 88, still shopping every Wednesday, now with enough money because Sarah had connected her with senior services programs she hadn't known existed. And she thought about Marcus Henley, the billionaire who could have stayed in his mansion and never cared about the people working in his stores, who instead put on a cheap jacket and scuffed shoes to see the truth, who rewarded kindness instead of punishing it. Last month, Marcus had pulled Sarah aside after a board meeting. "I want to talk to you about succession planning," he'd said. "Succession planning? For what?" "For the company. I'm 63 years old, Sarah. I won't run Henley Enterprises forever. I'm starting to think about who should lead it when I retire. That's years away. Maybe, but I want to be prepared. And I want you to be prepared." He'd looked at her seriously. "I think you could run this company someday. Not now. You're still learning. But in 10 years? 15? I think you'd be an excellent CEO." Sarah had been speechless. CEO of a billion-dollar company. Her, the girl who'd grown up in foster care and eaten ramen for years. "I know it sounds crazy," Marcus had said, "but 5 years ago, you were a cashier making $11 an hour. Look at you now. You've exceeded every expectation. You've changed how this company operates. You've proven that doing good and doing well aren't mutually exclusive. That's the future of business, Sarah, and you represent that future." Sarah didn't know if she'd ever be CEO. That was a long way off and a lot could happen. But she knew one thing for certain. She'd never forget where she came from. She'd never forget what it felt like to count pennies and come up short. She'd never forget the importance of kindness, especially when it cost you something, because someone had been kind to her when it mattered most, and that had changed everything. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that kindness matters and that treating people with dignity isn't just morally right, but practically smart, then share it. Share it with someone who's struggling and needs to know their circumstances aren't permanent. Share it with someone in power who needs to remember that the people at the bottom of the ladder deserve respect and opportunity. Share it with someone who thinks business and compassion can't coexist. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we're bringing you more stories about real people doing extraordinary things, about moments of kindness that ripple outward in unexpected ways, about the truth that how you treat people when they have nothing tells you everything about your character. Sarah Mitchell gave $17 to a stranger when she could barely afford her rent. A billionaire saw it and changed her life. But here's the real lesson. Sarah didn't help Mrs. Patterson because she thought anyone was watching. She didn't do it for a reward. She did it because it was right. That's what made her worthy of what came next. Character isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when you think no one will ever know. Treat people with kindness. Not because they might secretly be billionaires in disguise. Not because you might get rewarded, but because they're human beings who deserve dignity and compassion. Do it when it costs you something. Do it when it's hard. Do it especially when no one's watching, because that's when it matters most. That's when it defines who you really are. Share this video. Tag someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, the world is watching, even when you think it's not. Your character shows in small moments. Make them count.